Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Dominions 5, and today we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. Building thugs and building supercombatants. Now, those two get put in the same category a lot, and I really feel like that's a mistake because they're actually two very, very different things, and they do very different jobs. So, I have two examples with me today. I've loaded up a game in debug mode as Late Age Phlegra, the new nation that just came out, which I've been playing around with. And so I'm looking at these, the Laestrogorian Tyrants. So I have a Laestrogorian Tyrant as an example of a supercombatant because they are fantastic supercombatants, the best supercombatants in the game at the moment. And I have an example of a utility thug, a Colossi Storm Captain, which I've summoned through the magic of debug mode. So we're going to talk about the two categories using these examples. Let's talk about thugs first. A thug is in my definition at least, there are competing definitions to an extent, but to me, a thug is a mage or a commander of some kind who is geared and scripted to go do a specific job, operating basically independently. Might have a little bit of support, might not, but they're designed to accomplish their goal themselves. There's a few things that really help with that. For one thing, you want them to be cheap, because you're sending these guys out to do a job. You don't want them to be irreplaceable. There are certain magical paths which are much better for that than others. Earth magic is very good for thugs because it lets you buff your magic resistance, your protection, and your damage resistance with Temper Flesh. Air magic is really good for thugs because it lets you cast Mist Form and Flight, increase your mobility, and Air Level 2 lets you Cloud Trapeze, which means you can attack people unexpectedly from a long way away and during the magic phase, which means you can hit them before they move. So Cloud Trapeze is fantastic both offensively and defensively. Water magic is okay. Water magic is pretty good because it lets you quicken yourself and cast Liquid Body, which is like a knockoff off-brand Temper Flesh. The other paths of magic are not necessarily fantastic for thugs. There is some utility in nature, there is some utility in astral, but really, to my thinking, earth and air are the premier paths, the paths that make for very good thugs. And everything else is kind of secondary. Blood can have some use, nature can have some use, death, I mean, all the paths have some spell that thugs can use, but really earth and air are the big ones. So, for thugs, let's look at this Colossi Storm Captain, Idonius. Colossi Storm Captains cost 175, so they're very affordable. They're not expensive as mages go. He has a giant chassis, so he has higher than human hit points. That's valuable for a thug, it makes them harder to kill. He starts off with decent armor, which gives him decent protection. His attack skill is solid, and his strength is high, as well as his morale. His morale is also good. That's a very important quality for a thug. Also, he has Air 2, which means he can Cloud Trapeze, so Idonius can teleport himself effectively to any province in a fairly wide range during the magic phase, as long as he starts from a lab. That means he can basically pop up wherever you need him and stab a guy. So, Storm Captains have this combination of qualities that make them very, very efficient thugs. And for that purpose, you don't want to overgear them. You don't want to spend a ton of gems giving Storm Captains gear, because then the major use of them is lost. They're no longer efficient, they cost a ton of gems, and they'll probably die anyway, because they don't have the very powerful paths that are necessary for Supercombatants, which is a different consideration from thugs. So, Idonius the Colossi Storm Captain, I've given him a Frostbrand and a Vine Shield. 15 gems total, less because you're Fascia, and so you get bonuses to forging, and you can forge Dwarven Hammers and that kind of thing. So effectively, this is probably like 10 gems worth of gear, if that. 10 gems, 175 gold, and I have a guy who can teleport onto lightly defended provinces and take them with very, very low risk of dying. Script-wise, I have scripted him with Mist Form, which makes him highly, highly resistant to damage, non-magical damage that is. Quicken Self, which means he gets to attack twice per turn with his AoE 1 damaging weapon, and Flight, which means he can fly over the enemy. He's then scripted to attack rear. So what he's going to do is he's going to stand at the back of the battlefield, Mist Form, Quicken Self, Flight, attack rear. He's going to jump over the heads of the enemy units, the province defense that have been running to meet him, and he's going to hit the archers or the commanders in the rear and wipe them out while the infantry is running back to try and engage him. He'll be able to kill them very quickly because he's attacking twice per turn, and so by the time the infantry arrives, he should be pretty much done. This guy can take 6 province defense very reliably. He can probably take 10 or 11 province defense without struggling too much. If the province defense gets higher than that, he'll suffer. Now, you can also gear this guy differently to take on different targets. For example, if you're gearing him for thug versus thug fights, you can use powerful single target weapons. There's a variety of those. If we look at what we can forge, for single target anti-thug weapons, you could use a Star of Heroes, which cracks armor if they're relying on heavy armor. You could use an Axe of Hate, which is there. The Axe of Hate inflicts armor negating fatigue damage, and so it wipes thugs out very, very quickly because that fatigue stacks up fast. A couple rounds of being hit by a quickened guy with an Axe of Hate, and you're unconscious, and you can't fight back. So that's very, very powerful. You could use one of the armor negating or armor piercing weapons, like a sword or Axe of Sharpness. If, once again, they're relying on heavy armor, an Axe of Sharpness in the hands of a giant is a cheap and efficient way to cut them down. Alternatively, if you don't need the shield, you could use a Great Sword of Sharpness. This is one of the real classic early anti-thug weapons. Comes at Construction 2, does a ton of armor-piercing damage, and gives significant attack and defense buffs, so it makes you hard to hit in return. And if you need to kill a monolith, you can use a Gate Cleaver, which does a huge amount of armor negating damage. A quickened guy with a Gate Cleaver will hack through the toughest target very quickly, as long as they can't fight back very effectively. If they start to fight back, then you might be in for a bad time, because it penalizes your defense. But there's a bunch of different options, and you can gear this thug very versatilely for those different options. Since he has those paths make him highly effective in a lot of different circumstances. So that's thugs. Thugs are designed for a job. You swap the equipment out for the job. You don't give them a ton of equipment because they don't deserve it, frankly. They're cheap. You could have 10, 15, 20 of this guy floating around if you wanted to. Having 20 would be kind of expensive, but you could do it in the late game. And they'd be cloud trapezing all around the map, joining up into little gangs of 3 or 4 to take on tough provinces or help reinforce your armies, backstabbing enemy thugs, and assassinating mages if you notice mages moving around by themselves. You could have a real good old time with Colossi Storm Captains. Other nations have similar units. One of the very, very most classic thugs is probably the Van Jarl. In fact, let's actually get a Van Jarl so we can look at it, shall we? So we're going to cast Super Wish, and we're going to Super Wish for a, I missed a letter there. We're going to Super Wish for a Van Jarl. Yep, things are happening. Okay, so now we've wished for them. When you wish for something, they always come up as a unit instead of a commander. So we need to Gift of Reason that Van Jarl. And we'll get to see why Van Jarls are cool. Van Jarls are quite a bit more expensive. Where is he? There he is. They're quite a bit more expensive, but they're quite a bit more effective. They cost 275, but just looking at the stats, you can see the difference. Higher magic resistance, higher morale, much higher defense skill. Van Jarls start with defense skill of 22, and they have glamour, so they always have mirror image active. They still have the important Air 2 path. They don't have water, so they can't quicken themselves, but they already have an extra attack in melee from the hoof. So you can give this Van Jarl this same gear, and he, while being more expensive, he can effectively take on provinces and enemies that are much tougher than the Storm Captain can take on, because he can cast Mist Form. The Mist Form plus his 25 defense skill plus the glamour means that most units just can't hit him. And on top of being able to cloud trapeze, he's stealthy with a fairly high stealth value. So this Van Jarl can sneak into enemy territory with his very high map move and his stealth, pop up unexpectedly, and kill people who aren't expecting to see a Van Jarl show up. You can also use highly mobile thugs like this to cut off enemy armies as you kill them, as you beat them in combat, so that all the retreating units are lost. So those are thugs. Fast utility units. It's very valuable for thugs to be high speed. It's very valuable for thugs to be able to fly. It's very valuable for thugs to be stealthy, because you want them to be able to pop up where they're not expected. If thugs are anticipated, they die. That's one of the critical limitations of a thug. You're not giving this guy enough gear to survive everything that could attack him. You're not giving enough attention to him to let him be a frontline combatant. That's not his role. His role is to be a backstabber and a utility attacker that you can use in a lot of different circumstances. Supercombatants are a different kind of beast. A lot of people think of Supercombatants as just a really heavy thug that you spent a lot of gems on. Well, that's not entirely correct. If we look at something like Eurymedon the Lystrigonian Tyrant, that becomes obvious. The goal of this unit is not to serve as utility. His goal is not to hop around behind the enemy causing havoc. His goal is not to assassinate. The goal of a Supercombatant is to break armies. A super combatant is a destroyer. It's not a stiletto, it's a maul. And so, super combatants have to be geared in a very, very different way. For a thug, the most important thing with gear is that you gear them to do the specific job they're designed to do. Axes of Hate to kill enemy thugs. Frostbrands and shields to raid provinces. And you don't give them much gear, just a couple of pieces and you let them go. Super combatants are not designed to be offensive in the way that thugs are. I mean, if we look at Log here, he's got 2 pieces of gear and one of them is a weapon. And he's designed to run in very, very fast and do a lot of damage. And he has defense skill that he relies on, but his protection is low, his hit points are low. If his defense is broken through, he's dead. And that's okay. We haven't spent the resources on him to make him anything else. But a super combatant is designed to stand in the middle of an entire enemy army and not die. So the important quality for a super combatant, or one of the most important qualities, is defense. So a super combatant has to be able to resist whatever it is the enemy is doing to him very, very reliably and for a very long time. So look at this Laestrygonian Tyrant. There's a bunch of ways you can gear people like this, but this is one example. This Laestrygonian Tyrant has Fire 4, Air 1, Earth 3, Death 2. We're actually going to ignore the air because of some specific things about Tyrants, but he's geared with a... no, that's not what I meant to do. He's geared with a lead shield, which gives him magic resistance. A Firebrand, which is a weapon that gives him a little bit of extra fire resistance and a little bit of extra morale. The fire resistance isn't relevant because he starts with a ton of fire resistance, but it's there. A lead crown, which gives him magic resistance 1. I've put the lead crown in that slot because he can't wear actual helmets. If he could, he'd be wearing a helmet, but he can only wear crowns and laurels, so he's wearing a crown. A Hydra skin armor, which gives him 10% regeneration and poison resistance. Once again, not terribly important because he starts with poison resistance, but nice to have. A ring of regeneration, which gives him 10% regeneration. And an amulet of anti-magic, which gives him magic resistance +4. Here's the thing that's in common about all these things. They're all defensive. They're all designed to stop super combatant counters. Between all these items, his magic resistance is 27. And that's before he casts a spell that he can cast to buff it to 31, Iron Will. This makes him effectively immune to various magic resistance negates spells, to Disintegrate, to Soul Slay, to Enslave, to Charm. All of those spells just bounce off this guy, especially if he casts Iron Will. At magic resistance 31, statistically speaking, you will never make him fail a magic resistance roll. He has multiple attacks, including the Snake Trusses that have 5 attacks, so he can kill quite quickly, especially because one of them is AoE 1. But the main thing about him is that he's incredibly difficult to kill. He can cast Temper Flesh, which halves damage he receives, and he regenerates 16 hit points a round. So you have to do a net of 16 points of damage to him, or 17 points of damage to him every round, just to keep his HP ticking down. He has Fear, which means people around him have low morale and tend to run. He Berserks, which will buff his protection, his natural protection, up to 20, and will also kick his attack skill up to 19. And he recuperates, so even if you inflict afflictions on him by chipping away at his hit points, he'll recover from them in time. Looking at scripting. So my point is, this guy, I've filled every slot. And this is one of the big differences between a super combatant and a thug. A thug is geared minimally to do a single job. A super combatant is geared heavily, even over-geared, in an effort to stack as many defenses on him as possible to make him as hard to kill as possible. There's other options here. I've given him the Hydra skin armor because the 20% regeneration can be very valuable in certain situations. You could also give him elemental armor. That gives him a bunch more elemental resistances. So if he's attacked by, if you expect to be attacked by air elementals, 10 shock resistance is fantastic. If you expect to have people throwing frozen heart at you, you're fighting a nation with a lot of water magic, cold resistance is very, very valuable. The poison resistance, once again, he has enough. He has enough to stop foul vapors, and that's really all he needs. So the elemental armor is a fantastic choice. It also kicks his protection up just a little bit. He'll be close. He'll be at like 28, 27 or 28 once he berserks. This is kind of a choice that you have to make depending on what the situation is. Is the higher protection and elemental resistance is more important than another 9 hit points a turn? Kind of depends on the math of the situation. But in any case, the important thing is you're using everything available to make him as close to impossible to kill as you can. Scripting-wise, super combatant paths are different from thug paths. For thugs, the most important path is earth or air. Supercombatants, earth is still very important, but fire and death also become very important paths, and that's because of two spells, Phoenix Pyre and Soul Vortex. Phoenix Pyre, well, you can read the description. When you cast Phoenix Pyre, if you die, you explode. You take a certain amount of fatigue. It's random, but tends to be about 40. And then you respawn somewhere on the battlefield. And this keeps going unless you are killed with fatigue over 100, in which case you die for good. So you can't let your fatigue get over 100. Soul Vortex, meanwhile, randomly hits squares around you in about a 3x3 grid with a magic resistance negates attack, and if the hit succeeds, it does a little bit of damage. It gives you that damage back. It gives you half that damage back as health. No, I'm sorry. It gives you the damage back as health and twice the damage back as fatigue, subtracted from your fatigue. So the combination of these two spells, if used correctly, in front of an army of living units, they can't be inanimate, so this doesn't work on skeletons, but anything that's not inanimate, if you cast those two spells, basically you never die. The Soul Vortex sucks life from the people attacking you, who take a long time to chip you down because you have high hit points, high protection, and Temper Flesh, which halves the damage after they've gotten through your high protection. And as they're slowly chipping you down, you're regenerating and lowering your fatigue. That's important because this particular build with the elemental armor has 9 encumbrance and no reinvigoration before Earth Power. Earth Power gives you 4 reinvigoration, so you're effectively subtracting 5 fatigue per round. But if you wear the Hydra skin, you only have encumbrance 6. And if you wear the Rainbow Armor, which gives you reinvigoration and extra magic resistance, then you have encumbrance 6 and 3 reinvigoration. If you wear that, you can swap this lead shield out for a Shield of Gleaming Gold. That gives you another layer of defense by stacking your fear with awe, which means people have to pass a much, much lower morale check in order to attack you. So like I said, there's a lot of different options depending on what you're fighting. This is a very solid one. Putting the elemental armor on is solid in a different way, but the point is, you're building these combos to make yourself invincible. Now, you can never reach invincibility. There are always counters. There's always someone who can kill you somehow. But the goal of a super combatant is to make your opponent's army unable to do that, to force them to deploy a very specific counter. And if they don't have that specific counter on hand at the moment, they can't stop you until they deploy it. So, Phoenix Pyre, Soul Vortex, Temper Flesh, Summon Earth Power. These 4 spells are all designed to build up as much fatigue replenishment as possible, to make it as slow to kill this guy as possible, and then he just comes back after he's been killed, unless you fatigued him out. What this effectively means is to actually remove Eurymedon from the field. You have to have somebody who can either push his fatigue up over 100 with something like Axes of Hate, or you have to kill him about 3 times in a row in subsequent turns, without giving him any chance to recover. As it is, once he casts Earth Power, he'll have Reinvigoration 7, and even after the Berserk, that will keep him fatigue negative. So if he's just standing there fighting, his fatigue is going to tick down. And then he'll be killed, he'll explode, he'll reappear somewhere else, he'll get a couple turns to recover, and then he'll be in combat again, and his fatigue is still ticking down slowly. That's the design. Now, since he only has Death 2, he does require a gem, a Death Gem, in order to cast Soul Vortex. But honestly, with the investment in him, 1 Death Gem per battle is not much. He's already got 10, 20, 25, 35, 45, 50 gems worth a year. Some of which is very difficult for you to make. The Rainbow Armor is very difficult for Phlegor to make because you don't have these cross paths, you don't have any nature at all. And the Ring of Regeneration is somewhat difficult to make because it requires nature magic as well. If you don't have access to Rings of Regeneration, you're a little bit up shit creek because regeneration is hugely important for super combatants. Super combatants will take chip damage, always. There's no way to make yourself 100% entirely immune to damage. So regeneration kind of fills in the gaps. It makes chip damage a lot less threatening. It makes you able to handle it. If you don't have that, then you become vulnerable to a whole slew of other strategies that fail against a super combatant with regeneration, like being killed by wolves from Howl, or being killed by skeletons. Skeletons can't effectively kill this guy with his regeneration, because he regenerates quicker than a full surround of skeletons will do damage to him. If he didn't have regeneration, they would slowly hack him down over time. With the Phoenix Pyre, you might still recover from that, but it would be a lot dicier than it is with the regen. So, basically, this is a philosophical difference. And it's a difference dependent on the cost and the strength of the chassis that you have available. Thugs like Adonius, the Colossi Storm Captain, or like the Van Jarl, they're too fragile for super combatant work, and they're cheap, or cheaper. Van Jarls are still quite expensive for mages, but they're also very, very good at their role, so it's forgiven. But they're a lot cheaper. You can deploy them more widely. They're usually recruitable in more places, and so you can get more of them and deploy them on these kind of suicide missions where you cloud trapeze this guy into an enemy province, and his odds of killing the province defense successfully are 90%, and there's a 10% chance that he dies. So if you send out 20 of these missions during a game, you're going to lose 2 of them, but that's okay. You didn't invest enough in these guys to really be bothered when they go down. Eurymedon costs 600 gold plus 50 gems. You're going to be sad if he dies. You don't want him to die. You've built him specifically for the purpose of not dying. The ideal battle for Eurymedon is one in which he stands alone as everyone else runs away. All the survivors. He'll kill hundreds and hundreds of units and rack up experience very quickly and become better. But the point is, all of this gear is designed to keep him from death. A thug's gear is at least 50% designed to kill things. A super combatant's gear is 15% designed to kill things, if that. Mostly it's designed to help him live, because the purpose of a super combatant is to live in an environment that is enormously more deadly than the environment that most thugs are in. Most thugs are in fairly non-deadly environments. They're raiding, they're attacking specific targets, they're cloud trapezing onto mages, they're performing assassinations, what have you. This guy is standing in front of 400 enemy units plus a battery of mages. And he's going to walk out the other side, unless they have brought the specific counter to him, which most of the time they won't have. So that's just a little talk on the strat. And of course, there's, like I said, there's tons of different ways you can build these guys. Like, you know, this build right here has the advantage of the the rainbow armor. It's basically fatigue neutral even before I cast Summon Earth Power, but it has lower magic resistance. It has slightly lower protection than the other options. It doesn't have elemental resistances. Depending on what I'm facing, the elemental armor will be better, despite the fact that it gives me a whole bunch more encumbrance and takes away some of my reinvigoration. But if I'm expecting to fight air elementals, 10 shock resistance would be really nice to have. In fact, if I'm expecting to fight air elementals and not mages who are spamming magic resistance negates things at me, then I might do that and make myself immune to air elementals. And then I'd probably take that and I'd swap that out for a lead shield, because I want to have high magic resistance anyway, just in case. But you see what I'm saying. You swap items out as you need to, but the main goal always remains the same. Maximize the defense that your enemy leans on attacking, and secondarily just maximize everything insofar as you can. Sometimes you can't push it as far as you want. Sometimes you don't have enough nature gems to afford a Ring of Regeneration and a Hydra skin, so you have to pick one. You can't have 20% regeneration because you don't have 20 nature gems to spare. So you go, well, okay, I'm going to have to go with the elemental armor whether I like it or not, and then I'm going to have to find my reinvigoration from some other source. So you put a Girdle of Might in there or something to go with your Ring of Regeneration and the lead shield. Or you swap the lead shield out for the Shield of Gleaming Gold to keep from being attacked, and you put the Amulet of Anti-Magic in to provide your magic resistance. That kind of thing. You make decisions, you make pros and cons, but when you're making a super combatant, don't let gem cost put you off. 5 or 10 more gems. If it's the difference between winning a battle and losing a battle, if it's the difference between destroying an enemy army and losing a super combatant, win. Always. You've already invested so much in somebody like this that the gem cost is worth it. There's lots of other super combatant chassis in the game. They tend to be, they're pretty much all giants. They all have high hit points. That's important because it gives you a little bit of maneuvering room. If you take a little bit of chip damage here and there, it's not the end of the world. There are no human supercombatants that I know of, just because 10 or 15 hit points does not give you that wiggle room. They all have high magic resistance and morale, and they tend to have high stats across the board. Multiple attacks is a very valuable quality, albeit not entirely necessary. Having a lot of slots is very important. Lystragonian Tyrants get away with having fewer slots than normal because they're just that good, because they have the 2 extra attacks from the Serpent Legs, and they have the huge hit points and size 6 and high natural protection and yada yada yada. And fantastic supercombatant paths. Fire, Earth, Death are pretty much the best supercombatant paths you can possibly have. But generally speaking, you definitely want full slots. If possible, you want to be like an Anadon of Ashdod and have an extra slot, because that opens up a whole lot of possibilities to you. Supercombatants are limited by their slots, and so having more slots means you can stack more defenses in there. Lystragonian Tyrants mainly suffer from not having feet. I mean, on the one hand, the Serpent Legs are nice. It's like you're always wearing a magical item that gives you these powerful poison attacks that do high damage. But on the other hand, this guy would be a lot better as a supercombatant, or noticeably better, if he didn't have those 2 attacks and instead was wearing a pair of Boots of the Messenger, which make him a lot faster and give him a lot more reinvigoration. But, you know, needs must when the devil drives. You work with the units you have, not the units you want. If he had feet slots, he might be overpowered. Like, he might just outright be overpowered, because then he could make himself fatigue neutral with almost no effort. In any case, something to keep in mind. When you're talking about supercombatants and about thugs, keep in mind that you're talking about 2 very distinct things. Thugs are specialist weapons, supercombatants are army killers. When you're looking to counter thug, it becomes a matter of gem efficiency. Like this guy, you probably can't kill him without spending as many gems as he cost, if not more. That's what makes him a good supercombatant, is the fact that if you take a thug that you've given 15 gems worth of gear and you send it at Eurymedon, Eurymedon's probably just gonna fucking kill him. I mean, he's big and tough and large and in charge enough that if he fought like this guy with an Axe of Hate, he'd probably ruin him. He has multiple attacks, he has AoE damage, he has very good defenses. I don't think Log the Van Jarl with an Axe of Hate could take on Eurymedon. Now, there was actually a video that came out just tonight, it wouldn't be tonight when this comes out, a couple days ago, that Lucid put out about killing supercombatants, in which he showed off a Bane Lord with double Axes of Hate and Boots of Quickness. That guy can absolutely kill these supercombatants. He's designed to do so, but he also cost 50 gems of gear, or 40 gems of gear, whatever it was, plus the cost of the chassis, which is a summon, and not a terribly cheap one. I think it's 12 gems for 1 Bane Lord. So, you know, he's up there in price. If you spend that kind of resources on a custom counter, you can absolutely kill supercombatants. There's not a supercombatant in the world, I think, that can survive a specialized counter thug, or counter supercombatant, rather, of that type. But they're a lot harder to kill than thugs, and that's the point. So, just a few musings. Thought it would be interesting. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye on the channel. The subscribers game will be running. I'll probably start posting it in about 2 or 3 weeks once a number of turns have run, because of course I want to be, you know, ahead of the curve. And there'll be some other games other games and Dominions 5 as well coming out shortly, so stay tuned. It should be a good time. Thanks for watching. Hope this has inspired some thoughts, and I'll see you all in the next one.